Did you know that tarot cards have a fascinating history dating back centuries? Mysterious and beautiful, they combine imagery from pagan folk legends, Greek and Roman mythology, Egyptian iconography, and astrological symbolism. Today, we'll be turning over the cards to reveal their secrets. Tarot is very mysterious and its origins are uncertain. It first appeared in Italy in the 15th century. These are the oldest tarot cards that we have in our collection. They are from the 15th century when the game of tarot, or tarocchi, was new to Europe. During this period, we don't think these cards were used for divination. They were used for card games, a kind of trick-playing game where cards of higher value would beat cards of a lower value. We only have 4 cards that would have come from a much larger pack. The rich, powerful and playful inhabitants of the Italian courts would have enjoyed playing all kinds of games with these. As you can tell from looking at these cards, they are hand-painted and decorated with real gold. The best way to handle these cards is with clean hands and no gloves. The Ace of Cups features a fountain of the sort that you would wander past if you were in a Renaissance garden. On the cloak of the Knave of Coins is the burning sun emblem that's part of the heraldry of the Visconti family. And over here we have the 2 Triumph cards, which include Death, represented as a skeleton wielding a scythe, who's also wearing a cardinal's hat and robes. The text coming from his mouth reads, "Son fine, I am the end." The Death card is of course very well known in tarot, and you'll be seeing more from him later. And finally, we have the Star, which you can see being held here by this aristocratic woman with a falcon resting on her arm as if she's about to go hunting. It has been suggested that the Italian suits represent different levels of society, where the swords represent the nobility, the cups the clergy, the coins the merchant class, and the batons the peasants. The playing cards that we use in the UK are usually the French suits, which are hearts, diamonds, clubs and spades. Modern tarot cards today still use the Italian suit of cups, swords, batons and coins. These cards are a rare survival from the origins of tarot in Europe, and we're very lucky to have them in our collection.
This pack of cards is called the Minchiate deck, and it evolved alongside tarot in 16th century Italy, with the earliest recorded use of the game being around the 1540s. Minchiate differs from tarot because it has additional cards added to the deck. We have 4 virtues, 3 theological and 1 cardinal, 4 elements, and the 12 zodiac signs, making it 97 cards in total. This Minchiate deck is etched. We have a very typical design to Italian Minchiate cards here, with this additional piece of paper wrapped around the playing card and this dotted pattern going all around the outside. On the reverse, you can see the coat of arms of the Medici family with the Maltese cross and the crown. This is because the Medici family were a very powerful merchant family in Florence at the time. Over here we have the Death card, which is number 13. And here we see Death riding a horse against a Tuscan landscape, holding a very large scythe, and looks very fierce. The Death card in European tarot holds negative connotations, possibly because of the history of plague and pestilence across the continent. In other cultures, the Death card symbolises something more positive. It symbolises rebirth. Today, you might be concerned if you drew the Death card. However, it has a dual meaning. It either means something is coming to an end, or it can mean something new is ready to begin. The Tower card in the Minchiate deck differs from the Tower card seen in tarot. Here we have a woman being dragged by her hair back into the house of hell. You may recognise this card as the Hanged Man, and here he holds 2 money bags, linking him to Judas from the Bible when he betrays Jesus for money. And at the bottom we have the Aquarius symbol in the astrological zodiac, holding a sickle and watering some plants in a garden. Looking very wholesome. The Minchiate deck was not used for divination, but was still a playing game at this time. The name Minchiate possibly evolved from the verb sminchiare, meaning to play your highest trump, but has a completely different meaning in a contemporary context today. In Sicilian dialect, it means bullshit. Sorry.
This deck is called the Petite Oracle des Dames, which means the Little Oracle of Women. It was made in 1807, which was around the time that there was a boom of cards being used for divination purposes. This deck uses the name of a tailor who was a popular cartomancer in the 1700s. Cartomancy is a way of using playing cards to predict the future. Though this deck was made using a tailor's name, actually was made 16 years after his death, using the name of a tailor as a form of marketing. This pack was marketed towards women, who likely used it to entertain their friends. So it's not really one for the true occultist, but it's more of a light-hearted game. So now we're going to look a bit closer at the cards. These cards are really interesting because they use a broad range of symbols, from occult symbols to mythology to astrology. So for example, you can see this card here, which is shipwreck. You can see the ship in the centre here, and it also has a really small 10 of spades in the corner. The suit of spades in general was seen as a bad omen, which is really fitting for the shipwreck card. On the other side, you have prison, and so these could be used as reversals as well. So if I dealt the card to you this way up, the meaning would change completely, and instead of becoming about impending disaster, it would be more about a feeling of entrapment. On the other hand, we've got a really positive card here, which is the card for Juno. Juno is the Roman goddess of marriage and women. She is the Roman counterpart to Hera, wife of Jupiter. And you can see here that she's got her peacock with her, which is one of the main symbols of Juno. And in the corner, we've got the Queen of Diamonds, who symbolises, in cartomancy, the protectress and strong, intelligent women. This is the World card. Here we have, in the centre, the goddess Isis, the Egyptian goddess, surrounded by the snake eating its own tail, also known as the Ouroboros. And in the four corners, we've got the figure of a young man, an eagle, a bull, and a lion. These symbolise the four evangelists in Christianity, but they also symbolise four of the astrological zodiac signs: Aquarius, Virgo, Taurus, and Leo in each of the corners. This card here is the star card. It's very different to the one that Ruth showed us earlier. The image on this card will be quite familiar to those who use contemporary tarot decks. You've got the woman pouring water out of two jugs. However, what's really interesting about this card is that you've got the astrological and alchemical symbols surrounding the star. You've got Taurus, the moon, Jupiter, and this symbolises the planets being out of conjunction. Like the shipwreck card, some of these cards are really easy to interpret. Here we have the card for the benevolent blonde man and the brown-haired man of all heart. You can imagine the ladies playing with these cards might be quite excited to get the brown-haired man of all heart.
In the 17th century, Marseilles became one of the major paper and card manufacturers in Europe. The Tarot de Marseille helped formalise some of the imagery we see across the trump cards and helped make tarot more accessible and well known. Here on the table we have a deck that was inspired by Tarot de Marseille but was made in Milan in the 19th century. This tarot deck is called Tarocco Sopraffino, which means tarot superfine. It features copper plate engravings and coloured stenciling to produce these beautifully fine images. Here we see a frail skeleton sweeping the floor of all of life's indulgences, money, jewellery and objects, suggesting the fleeting nature of material wealth and power. The Tarot de Marseille deck helped transform the Lover's card, in which a soldier is represented with a decision. Here he is flanked by a woman representing romantic love and his father or king and country representing a dutiful or patriotic love. This card, La Luna, represents the moon. We have classic imagery of two towers, one of which is a lighthouse in the back, guiding nearby ships, with two dogs howling at the moon and a crayfish or a lobster on a platter in the foreground. This card symbolises the passing of time into night with the hope of a new dawn to come.
This is one of the most iconic tarot decks. It was created in 1909 by occultist Arthur Edward Waite, who commissioned artist Pamela Colman Smith to create 78 tarot cards. In the late 19th century, there was a real boom in occultism, and in 1888, the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn was founded, which was a group which focused on ceremonial magic and occultism. It was as part of this group that Pamela Colman Smith and Arthur Edward Waite first met. This is one of the first decks that was made in the UK. It was at this time that the Triumph cards first became known as the Major Arcana. You can see here two cards from the Major Arcana, the Magician in the middle, with one hand pointed up to the sky and the other to the ground, symbolising as above, so below. And on the table in front of him, he's got one of each suit. So he's got the cup, the coins, the sword and the staff, symbolising everything that you need for your journey is already with you. In the card above, we've got the Wheel of Fortune. This card's really rich with symbology. In the centre, you've got the wheel with a Sphinx on the top holding a sword. Down the side, you've got the Typhon, which is the giant snake, and at the bottom, you've got the Hermanubis, which is a combination of the Greek god Hermes and the Egyptian god Anubis. In the centre, you've got a stave, which is quite common in Icelandic folklore. It contains 4 alchemical symbols symbolising earth, air, fire and water. You've also got the letters T, A, R and O around the edge of the circle, which spells out tarot or Torah, depending on which way you read them. And you've got Hebrew letters which spell out the name of God. So you can see in these cards there's a really rich tradition of pulling myths and folklore and symbology from all kinds of different cultures around the world. Now I'm going to lay this card in the middle here and talk about the Minor Arcana. One of the really interesting things about this deck is that it was the first time that the Minor Arcana, or the pip cards, were given their own individual images. When commissioned to do this deck, Pamela Colman Smith was given very strict instructions by Waite on what the Major Arcana should include. However, with the Minor Arcana, she was given a completely clean slate. This means that all the imagery you see on the Minor Arcana cards were designed solely by Pamela Colman Smith. She designed these to be read intuitively, and this has had a real lasting impact on the design of tarot cards to this day. What I really love about this pack is the sort of bold colours, the really interesting imagery, and the fact they're super easy to read. And you can even use the colours of the cards in your readings. So for example, most of the cards which have a black background are some kind of bad omen. Well, you've got the Tower, which is not necessarily a bad omen, but it is about the sort of shaking of foundations and a change to come. And then you've got the Nine of Swords here, which is a woman waking up from a nightmare. You've got the Devil, which again can be seen as a bad omen, but it's more about this idea of entrapment and breaking habits. What makes these cards so great is that they're just so rich with mythology and symbology and the multi-layered meaning, allowing you to read the cards in many different ways.
Tarot can be seen to reveal clandestine knowledge and hidden powers at work in the world. These cards were designed in the early 2000s and brought tarot up to date into the age of the internet and reflected the anxieties of the 21st century. This middle row here represents some of the early stages of computing and the internet and includes the earliest programmable analog computer, the castle clock, that was made around 1200 in Mesopotamia. It's here represented by the Four of Chalices, which traditionally in tarot means fulfillment, but much more to come. So perhaps a sense of foreboding with this card. Jumping a few centuries forward, we have Ada Lovelace, who, as Queen of Chalices, is the first computer programmer. In the next card, we jump to the 20th century, where World War I and World War II are followed by the World Wide Web, which links the internet to these two worldwide shattering events. The pack also explores the countercultures that fought against government attempts to control society, and we have some examples here. The Two of Chalices, which traditionally in tarot symbolises love and harmony, is here represented by the Summer of Love. That period in the 60s, which alongside flower power and the civil rights movement, celebrated the freedoms of society, and it's depicted here in quite a psychedelic style. One of the key cards in the pack is the Devil, which symbolises evil, hidden forces at work in the world. And here we have the Control Society, which manipulates people to behave in certain ways via unseen power structures such as the internet. This fascinating pack contains so many ideas around the history of knowledge that really suggests to me that the otherworldly nature of the internet is almost supernatural, which is such a fitting theme for a tarot deck. Tarot cards have been reimagined and reinterpreted, but they retain a timeless appeal. They speak to our universal hopes and fears. Do you have a favourite pack? Let us know in the comments which cards speak to you.